Welcome everyone to another episode of Studio Fusion. I'm Deborah, and we have
I am Martin.
and I try to not do this. Every time I try not to say something, that's the only
Yep.
thing in my mind. I was thinking about the whole conversation we had when.
And
Okay,
you have
not going to go
Michael
there.
also.
Yeah, exactly. Where Michael was talking over the bot about how much he
Yeah.
loved me, and it was like, wait, are we live? You're saying it to the world. So Michael is sending his love to all of you. Michael, the
Good.
executive producer. So anyway, today we're talking about proxy feed. Wait, no, I got that wrong. Is that right? I should
Yeah.
have that up. And I only learned about it this morning because I've had my head in the sand doing development stuff. And thanks to our OG, Martin, who keeps me apprised of everything going on in the podcasting world, you sent me an email. Actually, I think was it yesterday or was it two days
Yeah.
ago?
Some
2 days ago
days
now.
ago, and I was catching up on the pod news daily, and then I listened to it. And this could be now again. Shout out to Sam that you could make notes if you use the web based. I don't know if it's in the app, but it's new, really fresh now in the Apple App Store.
Very new, yeah.
Yeah, but the web-based or the progressive web app or universal app or whatever you want to call it, there you have a note feature, so you could write a note to self. For example, I want to, and then I think it's time-stamped also, so I could make a note, so make a super comment or send a boostergram, or I like this, or do a research, or send it to Deborah. You could do all kind of things. And
I'm
that's
trying to remember when the notes
yeah.
came out. That was earlier this year in 2025. Wasn't that like, is it March or April or
Yeah,
May?
something like that. So,
Yeah, it's
because
pretty new, but that's a great feature.
yeah, but I like what Pod News is doing, and it's lots of work, and you like the automation about it, and James has a whole, script and process what he's doing, because he's doing it every day.
Right.
So,
That's
I
a
mean,
lot of
it
work.
turns into a newsletter, and newsletter turns into a podcast episode, and then it turns to the weekly show that they talk about what he has talked about during the week, etc., etc. And sometimes you could hear it, and then I want to read text about it, because when you listen to it quickly, you maybe don't pause or stop, and then you want to write it down or try to remember it or something like that.
That's where
So
notes come
then
in.
he also
That
often
reminds me
has
of
a
Audible.
link. Yeah,
Audible, there's a lot of times, and I know it's spending too much money doing that, but I do
yeah,
it anyway. But where I go get a Kindle book, and then I go
yeah,
get an Audible. Sometimes I even get a printed version. I know it's excessive spending, but I get three
yeah,
versions. But because sometimes you want to search for something digitally in the Kindle, but
yeah,
you're listening to something, and it's like, whoa, what was that? I want to look that up. So then I'm opening Kindle. But similarly, you've got your newsletter, you've got your
yeah.
podcast, you've got it in different formats.
Yeah. So I thought that you could, because you're very, I mean, it's over my head what you are doing sometimes with all this tech stuff, and doing your hijacking or do it yourself thing, or developing things. But there it was this proxyfeed.io, I think, not good thing. It's in or out. I think it's that app or tech domain that they like, IO.
Now,
So
I like how streamlined, like his website is very
yep,
user friendly in the sense it's not cluttered. It's not a cluttered website.
uh,
It's just straightforward, nice little purple buttons. At least on my monitor, it looked purple. I mean, it's an easy website to
yep,
follow. But I don't mean to say anything bad about him. Sorry, I'm just going to try to get that out of the way. His terminology is off.
mm-hmm,
I'm sorry. I've been in this business for 30 years. When I say in this business, and you
yep,
have me on the podcasting and blog, you've been doing this for what, 20 years? You definitely have that corner, Martin, on that one. But when it comes to like domain stuff, server
mm,
stuff, DNS, because for example, I'll give an example, case study. I was using and we should back up and explain what it is in just a moment. But I was using, I keep forgetting proxy feed. I got to keep
mm,
remembering what it's called, proxy feed. So it's on proxy feed on the website, and there's an option to either use proxy feed, and this is the same thing for a lot of services. Do you want to use their domain or do you want to use your own? You know, do you want to customize it with your own domain, whatever? And I thought, well, I'll just use theirs. It's quicker, right? So I went through and I chose theirs. Well, there's an error. It wouldn't go forward. It would not use theirs. And I thought, well, there's something buggy in their application, whatever. So we'll use my own. I know DNS. I've been doing that for 30 years, whatever. So I went back to set it up and the little field said, enter your subdomain. Well, as I said, I've been doing this for 30 years. And just to give some background, my husband and I had NetName One was our company. We were the lowest domain registration service provider pricing in the world for a week.
Wow.
And then another company came in Germany a week later and they actually undercut us. And so they were lower. But we were the lowest in the United States for a long time until GoDaddy. I'm sure everybody's heard of GoDaddy, but GoDaddy undercut us. And at that point, we're like, GoDaddy, you can have it. If we undercut it anymore, we will be giving people money. Okay, so anyway, so what I'm saying is, I know I'm talking about when I talk about domains, DNS, you know, all that kind of stuff. So this field on the website says enter your subdomain. So I entered the subdomain, and that was incorrect. What they wanted was what's called an FQDN, which is called, it stands for Fully Qualified Domain Name. And he asked for subdomain. So nice guy. I read his article. I can't pronounce his name. I'm not sure what his name is that came up with the proxy feed. Really nice guy. But he needs some help as far as the verbiage, because if you're selling this to other people, like myself, like other people who have been in the business to understand this, they're going to look at it and go, wait a minute, that's not a subdomain. And what's the difference? The difference is, let's see, Martin, your domain, teaparty.media, right?
Yes.
Okay. So if you have teaparty.media, that's your domain. So if you wanted a subdomain and you wanted the fully qualified domain name, FQDN, would be, for example, it doesn't have to be this, but just as an example, would be RSS dot teaparty.media. Wait, it's teaparty. I gotta remember your domain.
Yeah.
Yeah, teaparty.media. So there's two dots in there because there's RSS dot teaparty.media. All right, but the subdomain is RSS. So if you're asking someone, please enter your subdomain, you're entering RSS. So, and I'm only using it as an example because throughout the whole process, there were things like that where it's like, wait a minute, honey, you need the
that's
accurate
good
information.
Input and constructive criticism, because I think when I listen to the segment, that's why I only listen to it and then send it to you. I think I remember when James Cridland, when he read, it was almost like a press release or something like that, or this is news, that he wanted to have feedback or input and so on. So this is, now it's out here live, and then it's published later on as a podcast episode. And then you could, you had the links and see if it had any contact information. And maybe he's on podcastindex.social or some other places. So that could be good. So great to hear. And great to hear your experience with this, Deborah.
I wanted to get it to work before we recorded this so I could see how it worked and to actually find out what is it. Because I know the email I sent you, I thought, this isn't a proxy. You think of like an alias. Or, taking the place of, or, as far as the word proxy.
What is coming from, if it's Latin or something like the origin of that word. Yeah.
And that might be what it is. And if it's a proxy, like it's redirecting, like you go to rss.teaparty.media and then you're redirected to, wherever your RSS feed is, then that would be an alias. That would be a redirect. That would be a proxy. And not to say this guy didn't come up with a genius idea, but for example, Michael and I were doing that literally 30 years ago. We came up with what was called an Excel redirect, and we sold it to people who used to be Excel. Excel is no longer, they were purchased by Vartex, so that the company doesn't exist in that sense anymore, but they used to be like an MLM. So it'd be like being a Mary Kay consultant where you're selling Mary Kay makeup, and we gave them an ability to register a domain, make business cards with that domain, and then when people visited that domain, they'd be redirected to the MLM site. And so we called it Excel Redirect, and they would have a little dashboard. So when I was reading about this proxy, I'm like, that sounds a lot like what we used to do with Excel Redirect. And I'm not sure if that's what the service is because I never got the service to work. When I finally logged in, they wanted me to do some DNS changes. Again, that's my cup of tea, DNS. So I went and I set up what's called a CNAME. I'm not going to bore everyone by explaining what a CNAME is, but usually when you set up a CNAME, and a CNAME's like it's an alias. You also have to have an IP address. In other words, it's great that you have that out in the internet saying, "Hey, when you go to Orange, I want you to go to Apple."
Yeah,
But
so
you got to
it's the
tell
numbers,
people.
like the,
Yeah, the numbers,
Numbers
you
for
got
your
to tell
mailbox
them where
in
to
the
go.
world. Yeah.
Where do you go? Where do you find this information that when I go to Orange, I'm going to find Apple? Otherwise, you can't get there. So I thought, that's really strange. He's only giving me a CNAME, but not an IP address. I had to go actually look up the CNAME to find the IP address, and I added it manually. So that information was never provided to me
Wow.
in the process, which was strange. And then
now,
when I used his button to check it, it said, nope, it's not set up. Nope, it's not set up. But when I actually checked it manually myself, with my own tools, it was set up. So I had it set up correctly in my DNS. But according to his service, it wasn't set up. And interestingly, when you go to my subdomain or my fully qualified domain name that I set up, it does go to his server. So I set it up correctly, but it's not registering as set up. So I think the guy has a brilliant idea. I mean, it's great, but bless his heart, he needs a mentor that will help him with some of these little steps that he hasn't learned yet. Like he taught himself how to do programming. Hey, I taught myself how to do programming too, but I taught myself 30 years ago. Then I went and got a bachelor's in programming. Then I served as a chief technology officer in the financial industry in Los Angeles. I mean, there's some experience there and there's some mentors. He just simply needs a mentor that will help him define some of this stuff.
sounds like a good idea.
But I think he's on the right path. I'm just not really sure if it's an alias that redirects so that it's an easy, like it sounds like from all the articles I've read, and this is what I'm wondering if you got from listening to Pod News Daily. It sounds like it's an easy way to remember your RSS URL.
Yeah, I think I only listened to the segment and then checked the site a little bit and saw a blog post about some universal language or how you could, I mean, I think his idea or his, how to say, aspiration is to use a tool so you could interconnect in some ways. But I don't know what I could use it for. I don't know who could use it, but I thought it was interesting when it was the word RSS and it mentioned on Pod News Daily. And then I was thinking of you. So you have so many experience and skills here, Deborah. When I hear about the DNS, IP address, changing things, when I did that on teaparty.media, I talked on the phone with the owner. I could talk to somebody else as support, a live, real person, and they helped me. Even if I have good steps to do it, they helped me. And I met him at this VO, Value Each Other Festival in Tällberg. It's the area called Leksand where you have this, you probably have seen it because you have heritage from that, the Dala Häst, the Dala horse. Have you seen that wooden horse with the very colorful paintings?
I have a few of those in my house.
Yeah, so that's in the area, on that area. It's very famous there. So I went to there, and they're called InLead, and it's a small, private company, and they are not the cheapest, not the most expensive, but very customer friendly. And I got to have a tour of a server room inside.
Wow. Excellent.
And they have built it because the Red Cottage in this part of Sweden, so it's very cute. Yep. So they had to build a red cottage and the colors. It couldn't be like a industrial building or something like that. Right. They had to be so it was very cool. You didn't know, but
right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was
do you have pictures? That's so cool.
Yes, but I didn't take picture of the server. I didn't want to interview.
That wouldn't. Yeah.
But I have on the outside, and when he's waving and so on.
That's so cool. Wow.
But when you went inside there, you saw certain names that are famous here in America with the servers, and how they blipped and blinked, and the fans. It was cold inside, and all the cables.
Yep.
It
Oh,
was
I've been in a lot of server
Yeah.
rooms and
So-
server.
so
I would
this
say
was
server
cool.
farms, but yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
It was almost. But what I like is, and why we have this also, that it's a personal, and you get customer experience and service, and they are approachable and friendly.
that's very important. Yeah,
And then that's worth paying. That not the cheapest ones, and so on. And
Right.
and on the other hand, not overpaying that some because they have a flashy whatever image or whatnot. But that whole industry, as you said, I mean, it's a hard business, and it's very competitive, and it's only on price. But then it's the quality, because that's why we moved My Small Domain to that site, because the other one that I had before was a good company also, but then bought by a big one, and then it turned out that their server park and whatever need upgrade, and then it was a bigger company and no service, and you
right.
couldn't contact them. So
right.
that's very hard.
That's problematic. Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's
so
when we
then of
started
course
having-
it's good turning to this guy that you have all your ducks in the row before you launch your service or product. So
Well, and that's what
good.
I don't want to criticize. Again, I can't pronounce his names. All right, I want to give him a shout out, and we'll put it in the show notes. But I don't I don't like criticizing him, because I think his heart is pure in the sense of what he wants to do and help other people, and this like fresh ideas and what he's doing with Proxy Feed. It's just it's like, hey, reach out to someone who's kind of been down that path before and ask some questions, because you need to get the terminology right, or you're going to confuse other people, and they're going to confuse other people, and they're going to confuse other people, and it's going to cause a mess. And hey, reach out to me. I'm not going to charge you just to help you with some of the terminology, because it's basic terminology when you're talking about DNS and servers and domain names and things like that.
Yeah,
but
I mean, we'll see
quick
what
fix.
this could lead to. So that's a good
Yeah.
thing. So now it will be on the live, and then we later on could go back to the episode, and then we could reach out and see. And that's what I like with this, both Pod News Daily, that you listen and you get tips about this, and how James is getting all this news. I mean, of course, he gets input and feedback and emails and whatnot. I was
Right.
mentioned once when Ringer, the service, one of the service I used for long distance recording, it ended and shut down, and I got a thank you note from Tim Sinclair. Said you have been one of loyal customers, and but it's no more now. So then I thought that was a news related thing item, so I sent it to James, and he then reported that as one thing
That's
in one of the
excellent.
episodes.
I remember you mentioned Ringer to me.
Yeah.
Back when we first met. That was wow. We've known each
Yeah.
other more than a day, Martin. So I
Yeah.
guess it was a little while ago on that one.
Sometimes time passes when we have fun.
Yeah,
So
but-
and this
yeah.
is why we're doing this podcast also. It's interesting to see what's going on. And now it will be so-called dated because it's live. But what I listened to this podcast in 2.0 live session with the guest Rocky. I think her name is Thompson. And she is on SoundStack, I think, the company.
Yes.
And
yes.
she's really, wow, when I listened to her, she had lots of interesting ideas, and it was fun back and forth conversation with Adam and Dave. So
That's what Sam was telling me about her. Yeah.
I see positive signs coming up here.
Yep. Exactly.
And, yeah.
Before we close out on the topic of the proxy feed, and yeah, I really regret that I didn't look up his name and practice saying his name. And again, apologies to him, but we will put his name in the show notes. But
Yeah.
I am not sure what the service is, if it's a rebuilding of the RSS feed, which is what I personally do myself. And I
Yeah.
won't take the time to explain all that. That could be a different episode of Studio Fusion. But I personally take the components and I rebuild my own RSS feed. I've built an application that I use for Studio Fusion and my own podcast feeds, and then I host my own podcast feeds. So when I use Captivate, and I love Captivate, shout out to Captivate, Danny, you've been wonderful, everything, but I'm actually only using Captivate to build the podcast episode. So I build the podcast episode with my sound equipment, and like for instance Studio Fusion, we're doing it here with Riverside, but I knit the components together with a dynamic, with the ads and so forth and all of
Mm.
that. I use Captivate for that, and then I use Captivate to host just that media. Everything else, the transcription, it creates the transcription, but
Yeah.
Captivate creates the transcription. But as far as hosting the transcription, the chapters, I create the chapters manually, or with my application, I should say, and I built the application from scratch. So I say all that not to brag about what I'm creating. I'm sorry, it's bragging. That's not my intention. To say that's a case of building the RSS feed versus, I think, but I stand to be corrected. I think what Proxy Feed is doing is actually like a redirection, like what I mentioned with Excel Redirect 30 years ago. I think it's a redirect of the link, but with the ability to insert tags when he talks about podcasting 2.0. So you're redirecting the URL, but you also have the ability, which is kind of what I started to do when I started my project of rebuilding that was what I was trying to do, is like, hey, I'm redirecting it, but I'm also inserting some tags. And then it turned into actually building the whole feed with my application. So I would be really interested in finding out, and maybe we should ask him to be our guest, finding out exactly what that service does. First, it has to work. And sorry to say, it did not work for me. I tried to host it on their server, and I tried to set it up to be on the subdomain or fully qualified domain name of my own. And it does point to their server, but it doesn't work on their server. So I don't know what it does because I can't get it to work on their server.
So to be continued then.
Exactly. So I think, and with that, I think we should probably close out this episode and look forward to that part two.
Do you have any call to action or thing
yes.
to the listeners to do for next time?
How about a list of applications they're either currently using or would like to find or developed? Podcasting apps.
Mm-hmm.
Or is that too complicated? What do you think, Martin?
No, that sounds like a good idea. I could throw that out before I forgot about it. When I listened to Dave and Adams and Rocky, and they talked about IRC, interrelay chat, and also how it's there, but then it's gone. So you don't have any risk if somebody would say some so-called bad things. I'm for freedom of expression and freedom of speech. But if you say something bad, of course, then you could, get sued, whatever. But with the IRC, it's gone when the chat room it's away or closed down. But I wonder if Sam and true fans in the future, I like the threaded comments and so on, but it would be nice to have this chat function also, it could be that you have to have so-called, in air quotes, a big show or really nerdy people who wants to hang out during live. So maybe it's not will be for my own podcast. Yeah. But if you could, because now we are using that, but it's another step, and other apps are using, so it pop-ups in another window or whatnot. I would like to have it in one place. And if somebody could build that would be interesting to see.
That'd be great. And maybe an easy call.
Yeah.
Easy call to action is go try TrueFans app.
Yeah.
If you're on iPhone, you can download that. If you're on Android, you have to wait a little bit.
Yeah. So that could be interesting if that would happen as a feature in the future for TrueFans. So, but it will be interesting to see, and that's why you talked about also that so many tags or features that you could use, but then maybe focus in order to get this, how to say, no, I don't get that word, but people are changing their habits or getting to use these kind of apps instead of regular apps. So maybe you should focus on like the ones that's working, or could have this application like chapters, live item tag, Podping, and also the funding tag that now could go to other things. It could go to like Buy Me a Coffee or PayPal or whatever, or your Stripe or some crowdfunding campaign or So it's
We need
very
to have an
interesting.
episode on funding. Yeah, that's another.
we will have that.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
But
good.
well, thank you all for tuning in to Studio Fusion with Deborah and Martin, and we look forward to seeing you same time, same place next time, whatever that time or place may be.
Yes.
Just watch for us that one.